How would I do Wonder Woman in the DCU? This question is, in my opinion, a lot more difficult than Batman and Superman. Both of those characters have so many iconic stories and villains to choose from, whereas Wonder Woman there isn't as many. In this video, I decided to make a concept for how the DCU could do a Wonder Woman saga. This is going to work similarly to my other How I Would Do videos, where I take what we already know about the character's DCU adaptation and we apply it to our concept. Unlike the two other characters I've done, Batman and Superman, we actually have zero details on what Wonder Woman's character will be in the DCU. All we know is that a movie is currently being written, which was announced about a month ago. We also know about a prequel to Wonder Woman's birth entitled Paradise Lost, a Game of Thrones-esque story set on Themyscira. Other than that though, there is zero details on the character, so it gave me a lot more freedom to make the concept. Without further ado, let's jump right into how I would do a DCU Wonder Woman saga. So starting off Wonder Woman's arc in the DCU, we have to talk about Paradise Lost. So Paradise Lost was announced alongside 9 other projects that were revealed in James Gunn's initial DCU slate announcement. It was said to be a Game of Thrones-esque show that focused on the Amazons on Themyscira, and that it would take place before Wonder Woman's birth. This was one of the weirder reveals of the initial slate reveal. At the time, we had no idea if Gal Gadot was going to stick around as Wonder Woman, so this was probably their way of giving us a Wonder Woman adjacent project while Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman was still in limbo. In my opinion, this show should pretty much be a direct prequel to the events of one of our Wonder Woman films. You'd probably get more people to watch it this way, and I think it's important that this show has lingering effects on the character of Wonder Woman. So we're going to take inspiration from 2 stories for Paradise Lost. Firstly, Wonder Woman Historia. This is a very interesting comic book written by Kelly Sue DeConnick in 2022. It chronicles the origin and history of the Amazons and its secret island nation of Themyscira. The comic book dives into the mythos in ways we hadn't previously seen, and I'm certain that this is going to be what the TV show is mainly based off of. As for the other story, it'll serve only as setup for one of the Wonder Woman films in our universe. I've talked about Wonder Woman The Circle a couple of times on this channel, and I think it would be a great story to adapt for the DCU. The Circle is a group of 4 of Themyscira's most elite warriors that vow to protect Queen Hippolyta. They are ruthless, traditionalist Amazons that are extremely skilled in combat. Even by Amazon standards, these are the best of warriors. In this story, they find out that Queen Hippolyta wants to be a mother and plans to conceive a child, so they try to take out the baby, for lack of better wording. They are stopped before they can get rid of baby Diana, however, and are imprisoned on the island for a very long time. If the rumors are true that this show is going to end with the birth of Wonder Woman, I think you should have the Circle as central supporting roles throughout the show. Showcase how close they are with Hippolyta, why they believe so strongly in the traditionalist ways of Themyscira, and why they turn on Hippolyta when they find out she plans to be a mother. In the end, they try to take out Diana but fail, and are sent to a prison on Themyscira. Next, we move further down the DCU timeline with a World War II Justice Society movie. I think before we get into the story of Diana's first solo movie, we first have to meet her in World War II during the events of a 40s Justice Society film. One thing that I love about Wonder Woman's character is that she's been around forever. She's been part of multiple different teams and conflicts throughout the DC Universe timeline, and I'd like that to be showcased in this new universe. Obviously, the Wonder Woman film from 2017 took place during the First World War, but I still feel like there's a lot you can do with Wonder Woman in a wartime era. Like, I feel like there's still a lot to be explored. I mentioned this in the last video I uploaded, but I'd love to see a World War II JSA film. The JSA are my favorite superhero team, and I think a movie where they're showcased as the pioneer superhero team of the universe would be awesome. Not a lot of casual DC fans know this, but the original JSA roster actually included Wonder Woman. She was there fighting alongside them during World War II, and with Gunn stating that metahumans and super beings have been around for centuries in the DCU, I think she was likely part of the JSA in this universe as well. I think a really cool introduction to her character in the DCU could be found in this movie. Show how important she is to the DCU timeline by having her fight alongside the first superhero team in DCU history as one of its core members. I'm not going to go too in depth on a story for a JSA World War II movie because this is a Wonder Woman video. I just wanted to highlight that I think it would be cool to see her on the team in World War II. And if you guys want to see, I could do a JSA video like this as well at some point, but I'm not going to get into that right now. So let's just move on to Wonder Woman's first solo movie. I'm going to be honest, I've been writing a couple of these How I Do videos, and this has been by far the hardest trilogy to come up with a concept for. One of the things I've noticed is that Wonder Woman's history is incredibly convoluted. There are some iterations where she can return to Themyscira, some where she can't. There are some iterations where Steve Trevor is a World War II pilot, some where he's in the present, and some where Wonder Woman doesn't even pay attention to Steve and wants Superman instead. Nah, that last one is just the New 52, but my point is, her history is very convoluted. Because her history and backstory are so convoluted, I really wanted to find a story that dove into her background. This isn't going to be an origin movie, we've had plenty of those in the superhero genre, but because she is a character who spans multiple generations in the comics, I think it's an important thing to look into. So the story that I decided to go with for our first Wonder Woman movie is The Lies by Greg Rucka. This was the opening arc from Wonder Wonder Woman Rebirth in 2016, and rather than shying away from Diana's confusing DC timeline, it dives in headfirst and explores it. And I'll give a quick spoiler warning before getting into what this story is about. So The Lies is a story that kicks off with Wonder Woman trying to piece together her past. Her memory is foggy at best as to what has happened. Was she crafted out of clay on Themyscira? Was she the daughter of Zeus? Did she or did she not leave Themyscira with Steve Trevor? She just has so many questions about her past and can't figure out what really happened. At the same time, Steve Trevor leads a special ops group into the jungle in Africa to save a group of missing children. They've been taken by a man named Andres Cadulo, and Steve and his group promise to bring all of them back alive. In her quest to reveal her past, Diana goes to what she believes to be Olympus, but realizes that this is a lie as well, being attacked by unknown creatures. She then tracks the source of the evil to a jungle in Africa, the same one Steve Trevor is in, and begins looking for answers. Eventually, she runs into the cheetah, Barbara Minerva. Initially, Barbara attacks Diana, but holds off when Diana offers her a deal. Help her find Themyscira again, and she will help Cheetah kill the gods who turned her into her cheetah form. Cheetah accepts, and they become uneasy allies. Eventually, you find out that this guy Cadulo, the person responsible for all of these missing girls, is actually tied to the god Kartaga, the same god that turned Barbara Minerva into the cheetah. In DC Comics, Kartaga is an evil plant god, and he demands human sacrifices, typically women, and yeah, he's just all around bad news, and he is the one who this guy Cadulo is trying to resurrect. He is attempting to resurrect Kartaga, and I guess help remake the world in his image. Obviously, Wonder Woman and Cheetah don't let that happen, and take out Kartaga soon after he is resurrected. Barbara Minerva then returns to her human form, and sets off to help Diana find Themyscira. And then, at the end of the story, in their search for Themyscira, Diana actually finds out that since she left Paradise Island all those years ago, she had actually never returned, not once. It's a pretty groundbreaking retcon for the Wonder Woman mythos, and I think it's one that could be really interesting to see on screen. I also think it sets up our next movie pretty strongly, but I'll get to that in a minute. Overall though, it was pretty tough for me to find an opening arc that made sense for a movie. I decided on this because I think it would be really interesting to see Cheetah and Wonder Woman's dynamic as a team-up rather than a face-off. I know that might disappoint some people because some people argue Cheetah is Diana's greatest adversary, but I think seeing them on the same side could make things refreshing. I'd also have Veronica Cale show up at the end of the film, because she does have some ties to the Wonder Woman Rebirth arc that I think would be interesting to see on the big screen. If you don't know who she is, she's essentially Wonder Woman's Lex Luthor, a billionaire CEO who wants to find something but needs Wonder Woman's help to find it. Also, I think having Steve Trevor as a present day character would be cool. I think it's interesting seeing him in the present day and presents another angle that would differ from the Snyderverse take on Wonder Woman. It is a Wonder Woman movie, so you'd also have to throw in Etta Candy because she's one of Wonder Woman's most important side characters. But yeah, the story would focus on Wonder Woman uncovering part of the lies she has been fed. Not fully though, so it's enough to continue on into the next two movies as she discovers the truth, teaming up with the Cheetah to find the answers, and also taking on Kartaga with Steve Trevor and his special ops group. I had to read a lot of Wonder Woman comics for this video because I'm not gonna lie, I was not prepared to just write this one. Like Batman and Superman, it was easy for me to just map it out off the top of my head. But Wonder Woman is a character who I initially hadn't read that many comics about. And let me just say, if any of you are looking for a Wonder Woman series to read, I really have enjoyed the Wonder Woman Rebirth run by Greg Rucka. I think it's very good. This is the opening arc of it, and it gets into more stuff later, and it gets deeper into the answers to why Diana has forgotten so much, and I definitely think it's worth the read if you haven't read it yet. Now let's talk about her second movie, which will directly play off the events of Paradise Lost, that being Wonder Woman: The Circle. We got the setup of The Circle wanting to take out Wonder Woman in Paradise Lost, so the sequel will follow up on that and make them the main antagonists of this film. So just a brief recap, Wonder Woman: The Circle is a story about 4 warriors that were called the Circle that existed before Diana's birth, and they were essentially the Queen's Guard to Hippolyta. They were her royal protectors, and they were some of the most valiant warriors in Amazonian history. Once they found out that Hippolyta planned to have a baby, however, they betrayed Hippolyta, led by their leader Alcyone, who prophesied that a birth on Themyscira would lead to the destruction of the island. Before they can actually take out baby Diana though, they are imprisoned, and they're imprisoned for a very long time until much later when Wonder Woman's an adult, when they are freed from their prisons and they go after her again. Originally in the comic books, the Circle was freed by a group of neo-Nazis that invade Themyscira. The reason they were able to do this in the comics is because Themyscira was still recovering from the events of Amazon's attack, so their defenses were much lower than usual. Because of this, I think it's really unlikely that an outside militia would find Themyscira and be able to infiltrate it and free the Circle. I just see no way of that working if Themyscira is at full strength. I think these guys would get obliterated. So here's what I'm thinking. At the beginning of the movie, you have Diana return to Themyscira. Despite the rule that one can never return to Themyscira once leaving, Diana returns and is welcomed with open arms by Hippolyta. She is here to discover the true origins of her past. Upon returning, however, However, she ruffles some feathers of Amazons who see her return as against the law. So when she returns, tensions are already high. Then, soon after Diana's return, some unknown piece of technology is found on the shore of Themyscira, like a drone or something. This causes even higher tension amongst the Amazons, as no tech from man's world has been discovered on the island since before Wonder Woman left. I also think to make this fully work, you have to show that the story of the Circle and Alcyon's betrayal has been taught throughout Amazonian history since the events of Paradise Lost. Sort of like a warning to any Amazon who thinks about stepping out of line from Hippolyta or becoming too fanatical. This way, you can have some Amazons start to rebel against Diana and Hippolyta, siding with Alcyon and the Circle's view that Diana will one day bring about the destruction of Themyscira, especially following the discovery of unknown technology on their shore. Because of this, they decide to free Alcyon and the Circle. I know that was a painfully long setup for the conflict of the Circle, but I feel like it was necessary to dive into. I think this would make for a really good story for Diana in the DCU. It is a story that we haven't seen adapted anywhere in DC cartoons, animated movies, or live-action projects. It is, in my opinion, one of her best stories, and it's not one that many people outside of hardcore DC fans have heard of. Honestly, it might even be the ideal first movie for Wonder Woman, considering it's a story we haven't seen adapted before, and it would likely tie directly into Paradise Lost. I just have it at 2 because I think The Lies does a really good job exploring Diana's past, and also setting up the other movies. As for side characters, I think you have to have Steve Trevor play some sort of role, although it would definitely be minor because most of this movie would likely take place on Themyscira, so there probably wouldn't be that much room for him. I would also love for a character like Artemis of Bonham Migdal to be a large supporting role in this film. It would be cool to see her fight alongside Wonder Woman during a divided time on Themyscira, and she'd prove to be a valuable warrior against such a powerful team like the Circle. Also, Etta Candy is a vital side character in the Wonder Woman mythos, so she would be back for this entry as well. Overall, I think this story works really well as the sequel to our first film. We saw in the first film that Diana had never returned to Themyscira once she left back in World War II. Her return to the island would naturally set up division, and thus cause a conflict that would set free these ancient warriors that once prophesied she would bring about the end of Themyscira. I think it works out pretty nicely. We'd also learn more about the story of Veronica Cale, where it would be revealed that her daughter has been kidnapped by the gods. This is her entire motivation for going after Wonder Woman in the first place. In the comics, she forms the organization Godwatch to gain access to mythical places like Themyscira and Olympus. And then what I think would need to be explained at the end of the movie is that the drone that appeared on the shores of Themyscira that prompted this whole Amazonian pushback towards Diana coming back was actually a drone tracking Diana, and it was sent by Veronica Cale and her program Godwatch. This sets up our third movie and shows that Veronica Cale and her program are becoming more successful in finding and accessing mythical realms. So the first 2 movies lead up to the finale with potentially Wonder Woman's most iconic story, that being War of the Gods. So War of the Gods is a story from the 1980s written by George Perez. The story centers on the gods from various pantheons declaring war on one another. Initially, it's a mystery as to why the gods want to destroy each other, but it's eventually revealed that the entire war was manipulated and instigated by longtime Wonder Woman foe Sersi. Sersi is, in my opinion, Wonder Woman's best villain. We saw her make her DCU debut in Creature Commandos, and I'm willing to bet there's a decent chance she shows up in the Paradise Lost show as well. Unlike the original story though, Sersi would not be the only main antagonist. I think Veronica Cale would also be considered a main antagonist, as she is able to find the location of Themyscira in The Circle, and then work with Sersi in this film. Now, let me explain. With Veronica Cale creating an organization dedicated to research of gods and also gaining access to the realms to find her daughter, I think she'd get pretty desperate and thus make a deal with Sersi. If Veronica Cale's Godwatch can somehow gain access to one of these mystical realms, then Sersi will help her find her daughter. That might seem like a bit of a contrived plot, but I thought it would be an interesting twist on the original story to keep things refreshing. Another big reveal that comes in this movie is that Veronica Cale and Sersi are the ones responsible for manipulating Diana's memories, causing her to seek out Themyscira and return to it, which thus then leads Veronica Cale and Sersi to tracking her and finding out the location of Themyscira as well. Once gaining access to realms like Themyscira, Olympus, and more, Sersi would then begin to manipulate a war between all the pantheons of gods, with the end goal of destroying the Amazons and the gods, taking all of their power and becoming the most powerful magic user on Earth. Next, let's talk about some side characters that would be returning or featured. I feel like it wouldn't be a complete Wonder Woman trilogy if Cheetah wasn't featured in at least 2 movies. We saw her in the first film, but she was more of an ally than an antagonist. In the comics, Veronica Cale actually turns Barbara back into Cheetah not long after she becomes human again. So that's what's gonna happen here. Barbara Minerva becomes the Cheetah once again. Fueled by rage and Diana's failure to keep her promise, she becomes a sort of secondary antagonist for a short period in this film before returning to help Diana at the end of the story. Kind of like a Spider-Man 3 Green Goblin type of situation. Also, in the comics, this isn't just a Wonder Woman story. There are plenty of other superheroes featured, as the stakes are very high. I mean, you got literal gods warring with each other. So I'm not saying that you include the Justice League, but it would be cool to see characters tied to godlike mythology. For example, I think seeing Hawkgirl in this movie would be awesome. I love Hawkgirl, I think she's one of the best characters in Justice League Unlimited, and I'd love to see her dynamic with Diana on the big screen. I also think it would be a ton of fun to see Shazam or Billy Batson in this film. In fact, I think it wouldn't make sense if you didn't have Billy Batson in a War of the Gods movie. I think a short face-off between him and Wonder Woman would be a ton of fun to see. I would also bring back Artemis and Steve Trevor, as well as introduce a potential successor to Wonder Woman, that being Nubia. She's a pretty cool character, and for a while was the sole guardian of Doom's doorway in the caves of Themyscira. Basically, she was guarding Hell's Gate 24/7, so you'd know she's a savage. I wouldn't have her in any major role, but definitely a minor or supporting role would be cool to see. I'd also at some point have Diana go through a mini boss fight with Ares, because honestly, Ares was the lamest part of the original 2017 movie, so I think it would be nice to see him get his redemption in this setting. You don't even have to explain his presence really. The story is called War of the Gods, and he is the god of war, so that kind of just writes itself. In the end, the heroes would team up, the gods would realize they've been manipulated, and Cersei would be taken down. I also think the most likely outcome for Veronica Cale is that she doesn't make it out alive. Her superpower is essentially money and intellect, and neither of those things get you far against literal gods. I think it would be nice to get closure on Veronica's daughter, however. In the comics, it's revealed she is in a sort of paradise dimension that's unreachable, but I think it would mean a lot more if Diana was able to bring her back to Themyscira to be raised there. I don't know, that just seems like a Wonder Woman thing to do, but that's just me. But yeah, I think that's how I'd see the movie working out, and that's how I would do a DCU Wonder Woman saga. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm probably gonna get the Green Lantern video out next. I haven't decided if I'm gonna upload the Green Lantern video or the Flash video next. I have both of them written, but I don't know which one I'm gonna record and work on. But yeah, this was definitely the toughest one for me to construct. Like, it took me longer to write this one because I had to read quite a few comic books. And I think Wonder Woman is one of the characters you can take in so many different directions for a trilogy or a story arc in the DCU. So I'd love to hear what you guys would do for a Wonder Woman saga. How would you do a Wonder Woman trilogy in this new James Gunn DCU? I'd love to hear it. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.